In the old Kaga province of Japan, there was a guy named Daigo who was all about power and control, so he thought it'd be a smart move to make a deal with some demons. He even offed the priest at the temple before laying out his wishes to the demons, promising them whatever they wanted in return for making his dreams come true. Daigo made it clear that they could take anything they wanted as long as they granted his wishes. Not long after, Daigo's wife goes into labor, and after the baby is born, a lightning bolt hits their house, and the baby turns out to be cursed. This little one has no face and looks all messed up, freaking out the midwives. But Daigo isn't really shocked. He knows exactly what he's done, and feels confident that the demons will keep their end of the bargain. Daigo doesn't want the baby around and tells the head midwife to get rid of the ugly kid. His wife is not having it and wants to keep her baby, but Daigo reassures her that she'll have another one. The midwife heads into the woods to toss the baby in the river, but little does she know, a demon is lurking nearby. At the last minute, she changes her mind and decides to give the baby a shot at life. She puts the baby in a boat, hoping it'll either find luck or face doom. Once she's done, the demon jumps out of the trees and devours her like a snack. Meanwhile, there's a blind old priest chilling nearby. He's got a musical instrument, but it's hiding a sharp sword inside. When the demon charges at him, he easily slices it in half. After taking down the demon, the old priest senses the baby floating away in the boat, a little one nobody knows about, drifting into the unknown. Fast forward 16 years, and we meet Dororo, a troublemaker who's got beef with some local thugs who think he's stealing their stuff to sell. Dororo bolts while the thugs chase him down. There's also this weird kid in town, completely covered up with his face hidden. Dororo keeps messing with the thugs until they catch him by the river, while he's busy petting a stray dog. The thug leader threatens to off the dog unless Dororo complies. What a jerk. Dororo decides to take the beating instead of fighting back, but being the stubborn dude he is, he grabs a rock and whacks the leader with it. This just earns him another round of beatings, but he doesn't give up. He throws another rock, this time hitting the leader right in the eye. The leader gets furious and decides it's time to end Dororo's life since he won't back down. The thug leader shoves Dororo's head underwater and tells his goons to grab a straw mat to wrap up Dororo's body before tossing it away. While he's busy trying to drown Dororo, he doesn't notice this weird kid standing on the bridge. His crew points him out, but the kid seems totally zoned out, looking in a different direction. Only Dororo picks up on that. Suddenly, the thugs spot what looks like trash floating down the river. Before they know it, that trash turns into this nasty beach monster. The monster takes out the thug leader in no time and goes after the other two. They try to run, but the monster's got some serious reach and pulls them back before gobbling them up. Once it's done with them, it turns its attention to Dororo. The monster grabs Dororo. The strange kid jumps in to save the day. This kid's got two swords attached to his arms, and with some quick moves, he takes down the monster and half the freaking bridge with it. Dororo's super thankful for the rescue and helps the kid reattach his prosthetic arms. Just then, the mask on the kid's face falls off, showing his ugly skin, but then a new layer of skin grows back right in front of Dororo. Meanwhile, Daigo starts to get a bad feeling when the same lightning that struck 16 years ago hits the area again. After the strange kid puts his mask back on, Dororo can't help but ask him if he's really human. After this, Dororo decides to team up with the strange boy. No doubt about it, that weird kid is Daigo's son, used as a freaking power deal with demons. Dororo's got a ton of questions. He's not sure if the boy can actually see or if he's just pretending. Little does he know, the boy is blind but can sense movement by feeling. As they travel together, the strange boy heads to a pond to catch fish with his sword. The boy is about to chow down on the fish raw, but Dororo stops him, saying they can make it way better. Dororo starts a fire and grills the fish. Once it's cooked, he hands it over to the boy, who digs in with a big smile. The narrator spills the beans that the boy's name is Hayakimaru. Hayakimaru can't hear or see Dororo since he's got no eyes or ears, but he can see something called the Fire of the Soul, which shows if a person or thing is evil. On top of that cool vision, he's got superhuman strength and reflexes, which help him survive. Hayaki lets Dororo stick around because he's not evil and doesn't have bad intentions. The next day, Dororo hatches a plan to make some cash. He tells Hayaki that a village is being harassed by a monster. They're offering a reward for anyone who can help take it down. Dororo and Hayaki head to the village and meet the village rep. Dororo introduces Hayaki, promising the rep that he can help them get rid of the monster. The rep assures Dororo they'll be well paid if they can handle the job. He also mentions he's filling in for the village chief, Bandai, who's sick and stuck in bed. Dororo and Hayaki are taken to the horse stable for the night. This is the best night these two knuckleheads have had in ages. During the night, a creepy figure that looks like a monster enters the stable. The big-headed figure has a bell, which freaks Dororo out. He tells Hayaki to take out the monster, but Hayaki doesn't move until the figure leaves. Once it's gone, the village rep comes back to ask Dororo why they didn't deal with the monster, but Dororo lies, saying they'll get it next time. He's still shaken up from almost becoming Monster Chow, but keeps it cool. The next morning, Lady Bandai wants to see them. The two boys go to the chief's place, and as soon as they walk in, Hayaki pulls out his sword, ready to go after the woman, but Dororo stops him, scolding him for wanting to attack a human instead of the monster. The villagers show up and hold Hayaki back. They then lock the two boys in a more secure room. Dororo doesn't waste any time before giving Hayaki a hard time for wanting to take out the kind and beautiful lady who welcomed them. Inside the room, they find the old priest locked up too. The priest tells them he was told about a monster they wanted to get rid of, but as soon as he showed up, they locked him away. He's blind but realizes he's seen Hayaki before. The priest explains to Dororo that people like him can see things that regular eyes can't, and that's when it hits Dororo that Hayaki might have actually seen through the bandai. Suddenly, they feel something move in the room, and Hayaki rushes after the unknown figure, landing a quick cut that makes the creature scream in pain. They discover a well in the room, and following it, the tunnel leads straight to Bandai's place. Hayaki kicks down the door, and this time, Bandai decides to show her true self. Bandai turns into her real form, which is a nasty-looking monster. The priest recognizes her and tells Dororo that Bandai isn't just any monster. She's a demon. A fight breaks out between Hayaki and Bandai, and it gets intense fast. It turns out the villagers know about Bandai, and the village rep tells her to run before she gets killed. Dororo calls him out for being a jerk, but the guy says he did what he had to do to keep the villagers from getting eaten. Hayaki chases Bandai into the woods and catches up with her before she can escape. Before she can do any more harm, Hayaki shoves his sword into her head, taking her out. Dororo glances to the side and sees a large-headed figure standing there. He thought this was the monster, but the village rep reveals that this figure was actually Bandai's first victim, a traveler. Once they realize travelers have cash, the villagers decide to keep feeding Bandai with them. The first traveler had a pilgrim bell, which is what the large-headed guy was carrying. After dealing with the monster, the priest joins the two boys on their journey. Not long after, Hayaki writes his name in the sand for the old priest to read to Dororo. With that, Dororo finally learns the strange boy's name. Meanwhile, it looks like Daigo is having some trouble with the demons he made a deal with. In a flashback, there's this doctor named Jukai, who's totally dedicated his life to helping injured and weak people. He doesn't charge a dime for his services. Jukai makes prosthetic limbs to help folks who've lost an arm or a leg. He's so committed to his work that he barely sleeps, always busy crafting prosthetic arms and legs for those in need. Turns out, Jukai used to roll with the ruthless Shiba clan, where he was an enforcer who took out a lot of enemies in a brutal way. But one day, he had a change of heart when someone unexpected died. He tried to end it all by jumping into the sea, but a ship rescued him and took him to a foreign land where he learned how to make prosthetics. Jukai then came back home to help people with his new skills. He saved a boy named Kanami, who ended up becoming his apprentice. Kanami really admires Jukai for his dedication to helping others, which makes him work even harder. But one day, Kanami discovers Jukai's dark past, and it hits him hard. His own dad was killed by the Shiba clan. Feeling betrayed, Kanami confronts Jukai and almost takes him out, but Jukai begs for his life. He explains that he's not begging for himself, but for the boy he's working on. Jukai wants to save the kid and make everything perfect for him. After that, Kanami has the choice to end Jukai, but because of the project they're working on, he decides to let him live. Once they save the boy, Kanami tosses aside the prosthetic leg Jukai made for him, saying he can never make up for the sins he's committed. He walks away from Jukai, and that night, Jukai cries as he remembers his past. He gets drunk and finds himself by the riverside, where he sees a boat carrying baby Hayaki wash ashore. Jukai peeks into the boat and is shocked to see the creepy baby is actually alive. Realizing the baby wants to live, Jukai takes him in. A year later, Daigo's wife has another son, and Daigo names this new baby his heir. Fast forward 6 years, and Jukai is raising Hayaki like his own kid. He teaches him everything he knows, and even makes several prosthetic parts to keep him going. Jukai does everything he can to keep Hayaki alive because he knows the kid wants to live. One day, Hayaki gets attacked by a giant wolf. He holds his ground until Jukai throws an axe at the wolf, scaring it off. Later that night, Jukai notices a bunch of monsters watching them. That's when it hits him. Hayaki needs to be equipped to defend himself, so Jukai hands him a stick to use as his first training weapon. On the flip side, Daigo's kid Taho is also getting stronger and is even known as a sword-fighting whiz. Fast forward a few years, and Hayaki has turned into a serious contender after going through some intense training with Jukai. He's got no fear, which means he's not shy about charging at enemies and monsters. Whenever he came home banged up, Jukai was right there to patch him up. Jukai just wants the best for the kid, helping him push through his struggles so he can chase his destiny. But at some point, Jukai starts to wonder if he might have messed up by creating a monster, because Hayaki is really good at taking down beasts. One day, after taking down a beast, Hayaki grows a real, natural right leg, leaving Jukai scratching his head. But Jukai starts to piece things together. He knows about the deals people make with ghouls and demons. Jukai figures that Hayaki must be the result of one of those deals. Later, he gears Hayaki up with everything he needs to survive, and decides it's time for him to go solo. He gives Hayaki the emblem he found when he was just a baby, hoping it'll help him find his real parents. They share an emotional hug before Hayaki finally sets off on his journey. Now, in the present day, Hayaki seems to be getting the hang of life with the old priest and Dororo by his side. He's also started to feel pain after taking down the last monster. Next up, Hayaki and Dororo end up crashing at a young lady named Osuchi's place. She's out in the woods not too far from town, living solo, but seems to be waiting for her older brother, who went off to war 5 years back. Dororo thinks the brother's probably dead, but he keeps that to himself. Not long after, they spot a dude covered in sword cuts. Hayaki doesn't waste a second and bolts into the woods, with Dororo right behind him. A moment later, they stumble upon some dead bodies lying around in a pool of blood. Suddenly, the guy who did it pops out from the bushes and goes after Hayaki, but Hayaki manages to block his attack. Dororo's pretty let down by this guy and asks him why he's killing people. The guy says his sword demands blood, so he has to kill. But Dororo isn't buying it. He thinks the sword isn't the whole problem since the guy's got a nasty smirk on his face. Hayaki and the guy end up clashing swords, but it looks like Hayaki's holding back. The bad guy pushes Hayaki to the edge of a cliff, planning to finish him off. Hayaki uses his prosthetic leg to snatch the sword from the guy's hand before shoving him off the cliff. Hayaki's leg goes flying too, and Dororo offers to go find it. Dororo soon discovers the sword stuck in Hayaki's artificial leg. He tries to pull it out, but ends up getting caught in the sword's curse. Meanwhile, Osuchi is looking for the boys when she comes across the swordsman. Turns out, he's her long-lost brother that she's been waiting for. Osuchi brings her brother into the house, and when he wakes up, he seems more worried about his missing sword than anything else. Meanwhile, the sword is still stuck with Dororo, and no matter how hard he tries, it won't budge. The sword almost takes out 2 random folks passing by, but Dororo manages to stop it. Hayaki is now on the sword's trail and realizes it's kinda chosen Dororo as its new owner. Osuchi does everything she can to get her brother to reconnect with her, but he seems pretty far gone. The sword leads Dororo into town where it can actually harm people. Hayaki jumps in before Dororo can do any real damage. A flashback reveals how Osuchi's brother got his hands on the cursed sword. His commanding officer ordered him to execute an unarmed enemy. The guy doesn't want to go through with it, but when the general tells him to off himself instead, he thinks about his sister waiting for him back home. He still wants to see her since they don't have anyone else to call family. Osuchi's brother agrees to take out the enemy, and the general hands him a dull sword to do the job. This sword has a legend attached to it. People say it gets sharper with every kill, but it craves blood afterward. It's just a rumor, until Osuchi's brother takes down the first guy, and the general tells him to keep going with the rest of the captured enemies. Once he's done, the demon inside the sword kicks in, and now it's thirsty for more blood. The general who ordered the slaughter ends up on the sharp end of the blade too, and that's how the swordsman earns the nickname, Phantom Killer. Fast forward to today, and Hayaki is clashing swords with Dororo. Dororo is just trying to escape because he thinks Hayaki wants to kill him, but Hayaki is really just trying to get the sword out of his hands. Meanwhile, the Phantom Killer ditches his sister because the sword is calling to him, totally forgetting all the promises they made. In town, Hayaki manages to pry the sword from Dororo's grip. Dororo is grateful for the rescue, but the sword has drained his energy, and he passes out. Hayaki gently lays him down on the ground when the Phantom Killer shows up to reclaim his sword. It's round 2 between Hayaki and the Phantom Killer. Osuchi leaves the hut and heads into town. When she arrives, she finds Hayaki and her brother in a fierce battle. She pleads with Hayaki not to kill her brother, but the Phantom Killer is too far gone to save. Hayaki has no choice but to get serious and take him out before things spiral out of control. Osuchi is left to watch over her brother's lifeless body as the rain falls on them. After the fight, Hayaki feels that familiar sensation, and this time, he grows natural ears. It's clear now that every monster he takes down brings him closer to being whole. Hayaki's new ears should be a blessing, but he's still struggling to get used to all the sounds. Everything feels way too loud, like it's crashing into his brain all at once. Dororo has to tie a piece of cloth around Hayaki's head, just so he can function and ease the pain. They're chilling by the fire when suddenly, a bird monster attacks them. Normally, Hayaki would handle this monster pretty easily, but with his new sense of hearing, he's having a tough time. Hayaki can't move right or dodge the beast's attacks, which ends up getting him hurt. Just when it looks like the bird is about to finish them off, the old priest shows up and slices the bird into tiny pieces. After the fight, they lay Hayaki down so he can rest. Dororo thinks about heading to the next town to grab some meds for Hayaki, but the old priest tells him it's not safe to go right now. The priest explains that the Kaga clan is gearing up for war against the Sakai clan, making it dangerous for travelers. He leans in close to Hayaki and speaks softly into his ear, helping him figure out what a human voice sounds like compared to other noises. The next morning, Hayaki wakes up to a beautiful lady singing nearby. He gets up to find out where the song is coming from, and soon discovers the singer, Mio. Mio notices Hayaki is blind, and while she's helping him, Dororo and the old priest show up. Mio takes the 3 of them to the old temple where she lives. Hayaki still needs to rest and heal from his battle injury. Mio introduces them to other kids living in the temple, kids who've been orphaned by the war and are disabled in one way or another. Mio is responsible for taking care of the kids, and she does this by working at the soldiers' camp. One of the kids tells Dororo that Mio works at the Sakai camp, serving food to the soldiers at night. She sleeps during the day and works all night. Later, the old priest leaves the temple to find a way for them to escape the war. Meanwhile, Daigo and his wife are starting to notice that things aren't going well again, just like 16 years ago. As time passes, Hayaki finds himself drawn to Mio's lovely voice. One morning, he waits for her to come back and asks her to sing for him. He moves his mouth to show Mio what he wants, and Dororo picks up on it and tells her. As requested, Mio sings for him, and her voice helps ease the pain Hayaki is feeling. Not long after, the priest comes back from his trip with some good and bad news. He found a spot where Mio and the kids can settle down, and he checked it out himself. It's far from the war, so they won't have to constantly look over their shoulders. But here's the catch. There's a demon living on that land. The old priest thinks this demon is pretty dangerous, but once they deal with it, the land is theirs for the taking. As soon as Hayaki hears about the fertile land and the demon, he jumps up, ready to take it down. Dororo tries to stop him because he's still healing from his injuries. Even the old priest knows Hayaki would want to fight the demon, but he's surprised at how eager he is. The priest decides to take Hayaki to the demon's lair, and Dororo begs him to keep an eye on Hayaki. Once Hayaki and the priest leave, Mio shares her plan to work even harder. She tells the kids she wants to take on jobs at both the Kaga and Sakai camps to earn more money, even though it's risky. She knows they need cash to move to a new place. Worried about her safety, Dororo decides to follow her secretly. Later that night, Hayaki and the priest arrive at the demon's territory. The priest tries to talk Hayaki out of fighting since he's not fully healed, but Hayaki is as stubborn as they come. They jump right into the demon's lair to confront it. Meanwhile, Dororo is shocked to see Mio serving the soldiers in a way that's not exactly safe. While battling the demon, Hayaki miscalculates and leaves himself open for an attack. The demon crushes Hayaki's right leg, and he screams out in pain. The priest manages to get Hayaki out of the demon's lair before things get even messier. Dororo bumps into the priest and Hayaki on their way home. Hayaki's missing a leg, but the priest reassures Dororo that Hayaki's not gonna die from his injuries. They take Hayaki back to the temple, and when Mio comes back the next morning, she nearly freaks out when she sees how bad Hayaki looks. Without wasting a second, Mio grabs a cloth to clean him up and take care of his wounds. Dororo sees this and walks away, feeling frustrated because he can't look at Mio the same way anymore. He talks to one of the kids, who tells him that Mio has promised to work hard for them to have a better life. Mio even plans to set up rice paddies in the future, which she'll manage with the kids. This gives Dororo a light bulb moment about why Mio is doing what she does. Meanwhile, at Daigo's place, his son Taho is itching to prove himself. He begs Daigo to let him join the war to take out Saiki quickly, but Daigo says no. Daigo just tells Taho to get back to training, which ticks him off. Taho ends up taking his anger out on his mom, saying she doesn't care. To cool off, Taho hops on a horse and rides out with his retainers. They scold him for being so casual with his mom. Taho admits that his mom loves him, but he feels like there's something or someone else his parents care about more than him, and he just can't figure out what it is. He knows they're keeping secrets from him and wants to find out. Back at the temple, Hayaki tries to push himself to stand, but ends up falling. Mio rushes over to check on him, urging him not to overdo it. With her sweet voice, Mio calms Hayaki down. The priest and Dororo hang back behind the door to listen to Mio sing to him. Later that day, the priest decides to leave but tells Dororo to keep an eye on Hayaki because there are signs of demonic stuff in him. The priest warns Dororo that even a small mistake could cause Hayaki to turn into a monster, and that would be a disaster. On the flip side, Daigo's men are plotting a surprise attack on the enemy camp, but first, they want to deal with any spies. Before heading out that night, Mio tells Dororo that she knows he's aware of what her job really is. Before she can explain why she's doing this, Dororo tells her he gets it. He encourages Mio to take back everything the war stole from her. Not long after, Hayaki starts chopping a block of wood to make a replacement for his leg. One evening, as usual, Mio is getting ready to head to work, and she tells Dororo to keep an eye on Hayaki and make sure he doesn't go after the demon while he's still healing. Mio helped Daigo's men the day before, but now she's on her way to the Sakai camp. Little does she know, Daigo's guys are watching her because they think she's a spy. In the middle of the night, Dororo wakes up and realizes Hayaki has gone after the demon, even though he's got a wooden leg. Dororo leaves the temple to find Hayaki and hopefully bring him back before things get messy. When Mio comes back the next morning, she's shocked to find out Hayaki has gone to fight the demon. Unbeknownst to her, Daigo's men followed her home. The fight between Hayaki and the demon is brutal, but Hayaki is super determined this time, and he manages to take the demon down by chopping off its head. It was supposed to rain, but as soon as Hayaki defeats the demon, the rain just stops. Dororo finds Hayaki after he's taken out the demon. Luckily, Hayaki has his leg back, but Dororo gives him a hard time for running off without telling anyone. Things go south when they return to the temple and find Daigo's men slaughtering the kids. They've taken out everyone and even set the temple on fire. Dororo slowly approaches the temple, and when he sees Mio lying on the ground, he tries to rush over to her, but the squad leader grabs him and throws him aside. Just when Dororo is about to be finished off, Hayaki saves him by slicing off the squad leader's hand. Dororo still doesn't get what's happening until he hears Mio's weak voice as she's slipping away. At that moment, Hayaki loses it and screams in agony. Before the soldiers can react, Hayaki takes them down in the most brutal way. Dororo watches this unfold and remembers what the old priest said about Hayaki turning into a monster if he's not careful. The only soldier left is the squad leader, who's missing an arm. Hayaki is about to finish him off, but Dororo stops him, begging him not to become a monster. Thanks to Dororo's plea, the squad leader gets to live, even though he doesn't deserve it. Dororo calms Hayaki down and shows him the grains of rice that Mio managed to get from the soldiers, meaning she didn't lose in the end. Hayaki carries Mio's body, and the next morning, he and Dororo bury Mio and the kids before leaving the temple. The only thing Hayaki can remember Mio by is her beautiful voice and the sweet song she used to sing for him. Dororo and Hayaki are on their adventure when they run into a monster spider that's draining the life out of her victims. As you'd expect, Hayaki jumps in to take her down. He manages to hurt the spider, but she webs him up against a tree and makes a getaway. Dororo frees him from the web, while the spider hides in the woods, looking for her next meal. She needs human life force to fully regain her strength. Later that night, Dororo and Hayaki stumble upon a village dealing with a kidnapping problem, which has made security super tight. Dororo sees this as a golden opportunity because they can solve the issue and get paid for it. The next morning, a villager named Yajiro finds the spider lady, and thinking she needs help, he takes her in. Yajiro brings the spider lady to his home and cares for her, even feeding her. She's shocked by his kindness and the way he talks. This is the first time she's met a nice human like Yajiro, and she starts to rethink her plan to make him her next victim. Not long after, Dororo and Hayaki spot a notice from the authorities saying that anyone who brings the kidnapper to justice will get a reward. This is a sweet deal for Dororo, since he believes a monster is behind it. He decides they should make this their mission, and tells Hayaki they need to track down the monster. Since the monster only comes out at night, they plan to wait until then to hunt, but they need to move fast to score that cash. They're running low on food and are just scraping by on weeds and small fruits. When Yajiro gets home, the spider lady is even more impressed with him because of how he talks. He believes all life is equal and shouldn't be taken. That night, she feels tempted to drain Yajiro's life force, but fights the urge because he's clearly a good guy. The next day, Dororo and Hayaki learn that another villager has gone missing. This is surprising since they were on watch all night, and Dororo starts to think maybe the kidnapper isn't a monster after all. The spider lady notices Yajiro sneaking out at night and asks him why. Yajiro admits he has another job he does after dark. Meanwhile, the spider lady is getting weaker since she hasn't fed on anyone's life force. She confesses to Yajiro that she's a monster, but insists she's never killed anyone. She just drains their life force and lets them recover. Yajiro is concerned for her and tells her they need to get her out of the village to see a doctor. That night, Yajiro grabs the spider lady to get her out of the village, but they run into Hayaki and Dororo. Dororo is pumped that they finally caught up to the monster lady. He tells Yajiro to move aside because the lady he's trying to protect is actually a monster. Dororo even accuses her of being the one kidnapping people. That's when Yajiro steps in and sets Dororo straight. He admits he's the one who's been kidnapping people. Turns out, he's been helping folks escape the village because the ruler is super strict and treats them badly. They can't even leave the village, which is why Yajiro had to sneak people out. Just then, the guards pop up from their hiding spot. Looks like they've been tracking Yajiro too. The whole story about rewarding anyone who brings Yajiro to justice was just a lie. The lord of the area doesn't want the villagers to leave so they can keep working in the quarry. The guards try to grab Yajiro, but the spider lady jumps in and webs them up. Hayaki pulls out his sword to go after the lady, but she and Yajiro take off. The guards call for backup while Hayaki and Dororo chase after them. The spider lady uses her web to swing across the mountain with Yajiro in tow. She's still weak, which means she needs to drain the life force of at least 5 people. The soldiers are hot on their heels, and so is Hayaki. Yajiro gets the spider lady to a spot on the mountain where she can actually escape. She doesn't want Yajiro to go back to the village because the soldiers will definitely kill her. The spider lady wants them to escape together. Yajiro agrees, and just as they're about to slip through a small opening, the guards show up and shoot Yajiro with arrows. The spider lady gets furious and goes after the guards. She takes them down and feeds on them while protecting Yajiro. Hayaki also shows up to fight the spider lady because he sees her as a threat. The spider lady is ready to go dark, but Yajiro urges her not to kill anyone since she hasn't done that before. She listens to Yajiro and curls up next to him instead. At that moment, the red color Hayaki sees in the lady fades away, turning white, which means she's now a pure soul. Hayaki lowers his sword and lets the spider lady and Yajiro escape together. The next morning, Hayaki and Dororo leave the village to continue their adventure. In a nearby village, a dark cloud rolls in, freaking everyone out. This isn't just any cloud, it comes with a monster. To keep the monster happy, the villagers decide to sacrifice a bride. Dororo and Hayaki are in the area when they bump into the bride's supposed brother. This dude, Saru, is rocking a wolf pelt, making him look pretty badass. When Dororo hears about the monster situation, he tells Saru they can help him get his sister back. The monster always demands a bride to avoid munching on the whole village. So, Saru heads up the mountain to rescue his sister, with Hayaki and Dororo ready to back him up. But here's the twist. Saru's sister doesn't want to be saved. She tells him she chose to be sacrificed, not forced. She's doing it to protect the village from being wiped out by the monster. Just then, Hayaki and Dororo pop out from their hiding spot, promising to save her and the whole village. Suddenly, the monster shows up on the mountain, covering everything in its black cloud. The first to go are the guards, who get sucked up and spat out. Things are looking rough because Hayaki can't see through the dark cloud, making it hard to find the monster. It's the first time he's lost his sight, and he feels super vulnerable. The monster emerges from the clouds, and it's a giant centipede. They're powerless to stop it, and it ends up swallowing Saru's sister. But when the sun breaks through, the monster retreats. Once the cloud clears, Saru looks completely crushed and bummed that he couldn't save his sister. He takes Dororo back to his place in the mountains. Turns out, the girl isn't even Saru's real sister. Saru's an orphan living in the mountains, and humans always chase him away. One day he got hurt, and it was the bride who helped him. He was just a kid back then, but he's always thought of her as his big sister. Saru is heartbroken over losing her, but is determined to get revenge since that's all he has left. Dororo feels let down that they couldn't beat the monster, and promises to help Saru get the justice he deserves. Meanwhile, Hayaki is sulking because he felt useless against the monster, just sitting there tossing rocks. Now, it's up to Dororo and Saru to tackle the monsters solo. To make things worse, they realize the monster is about to get even bigger. Their only option is to lure it out into the sunlight, its only weakness. They shake hands, looking all cool about it. That night, as they sleep, Hayaki gets close to the kids and sees how sad they are. Later on, Saru and Dororo kick off their plan. Dororo's job is to lure the monster to a specific spot. He pulls it off without getting chomped, which is a win. They've got fire arrows ready to go, and they unleash them all on the centipede, making it scream in pain. But that's not enough to take it down. The monster shakes off the flames and comes back even angrier. Just when it looks like the kids are about to become a snack, Hayaki shows up and starts shooting arrows at the beast. Turns out, he's using the sound of the arrows to track the centipede. Once Dororo figures this out, he jumps on the monster's head and ties himself to it. Dororo tells Hayaki to follow his voice. Hayaki is all set to do it, but Dororo passes out from the wind. Just when it seems like the centipede is about to win, Dororo wakes up, and with his voice guiding him, Hayaki knows exactly where to aim. He goes after the centipede and takes it down. They both end up falling into the lake below. Luckily, Saru's sister is still alive because the monster didn't eat her. It's a win for everyone, including the villagers. After the battle, Hayaki grows a natural nose, which means he can finally smell stuff. He's super pumped about his new sense and takes every chance he gets to sniff everything around him. Not long after that, Dororo catches a fever. Hayaki, being the caring guy he is, picks him up and throws him over his shoulder while he asks random people for help. But nobody's willing to pitch in because they say they're not doctors. Hayaki is keeping an eye on the kid under a tree when a nun shows up to lend a hand. She takes them to the temple where she stays, and when Dororo wakes up, he freaks out because he doesn't see Hayaki around. Dororo thinks Hayaki ditched him, but the nun reassures him that Hayaki is nearby. He just stepped out to grab some water. Dororo spots a bright red flower in the temple and tells the nun he doesn't like it because it reminds him of a bad memory. We get a glimpse into Dororo's childhood. Turns out, his dad was the leader of a rebel group fighting against samurais because of their endless wars. Dororo's dad was a skilled fighter, and Dororo wants to be just like him. One time, his dad and his crew got ambushed by some samurais, but being the badass warrior he is, Dororo's dad led his guys to victory. He had a rule: only hurt samurais, not anyone else. Dororo once asked him why he goes after samurais, and his dad said it's his way of teaching them a lesson. Later on, the old man's right-hand man, Itachi, suggests they stop fighting the samurai, saying they must have learned their lesson by now. He even proposes teaming up with the samurai going forward, but that just ticks off Dororo's dad. He punches Itachi in the face and warns him not to say something like that again. Not long after, Itachi betrays the group to the samurais, leading to their downfall. Dororo's dad survives, but he's shot with arrows to weaken him. Itachi tells the old man that times have changed, and he needs to change too. Dororo's family loses everything and is left to scavenge like peasants. During this time, Dororo sees the harsh realities of war and how people are struggling. One day, the family stumbles upon a bunch of samurais burning down a village. The old man has no plans to fight and decides to just walk away, but one of the samurais recognizes him by his weapon and comes after him. The old man has to defend himself, and even though he's hurt, he takes down the samurai easily. In the end, he gets impaled by a spear, but makes sure to take his killer down with him. Dororo lost his dad, leaving him with just his mom. They keep traveling through a tough region, eating whatever they can find. His mom keeps pushing him to stay alive so he doesn't get caught up in the brutal wars. Dororo's just a kid, but he's been through a lot. One day, they hear that samurais are giving out free food at the temple. Since they're starving, they have to go check it out. This is their only shot at survival, so they gotta take it. When they get to the temple, they find out Itachi is running the whole thing. Instead of feeling sorry for Dororo's mom, Itachi mocks her and her kid. When it's time for her to grab her food, she has no choice but to scoop the hot food in her hands, while Dororo eats to stay alive. Itachi strolls over to gloat and makes fun of them, saying they need to be smarter if they want to make it in this harsh world. Not long after, Dororo and his mom are walking through a field of red flowers when she finally collapses because she just can't go on anymore. Dororo's mom dies right there in the field, leaving him all alone to fend for himself. After sharing his story with the nun, Dororo tells her that's why he can't give up. When he finally drifts off to sleep, the nun tells Hayaki to look after Dororo because he's fragile. In a surprising twist, the nun reveals that Dororo is actually a girl, not the boy everyone thinks he is. After a 3-day fever, Dororo and Hayaki finally leave the temple. As they head out, it hits Dororo that the nun must have taken off her clothes while caring for her. It dawns on Dororo that the nun probably knows who she really is. Dororo tries to get the truth out of Hayaki to see if he's in the loop, but Hayaki keeps quiet so she can hold on to the idea that her secret about her gender is safe. Next up, Daigo is getting more and more antsy as the drought in his area drags on. On top of that, the Asakura clan next door is gathering their troops, just waiting for the perfect chance to raid Daigo's territory. To figure out what his parents are hiding, Taho decides to do some digging on his own. Daigo also heads to the demons to get the scoop on what's going down. While he's at the shrine, he gets a clear picture of what Hayaki looks like. Later, Taho manages to grab one of his dad's retainers and drugs him so he can ask some questions. Taho finds out about a baby from 16 years ago, but before he can learn more, the guy bites his own tongue to keep Taho from getting any further info. After getting this tidbit, Taho confronts his dad, demanding to know why he's searching for a baby from so long ago. Daigo snaps back at Taho, telling him to stop poking his nose into stuff that doesn't concern him. He's just bummed that Hayaki is still alive because that's the only reason things are going downhill for him. Not satisfied with his dad's answer, Taho decides to take a moment to reflect, but his retainers, who are always close by, manage to track him down. Just then, Taho notices something going on in the nearby village. He decides to check it out and finds the villagers begging the soldiers for help. Apparently, a water monster is causing chaos. The villagers explain to Taho that there's a giant crab monster in the river. The monster creates ripples in the water that steer their boats right into its clutches. The crab just waits patiently for its victims to fall into its mouth. After hearing this, Taho decides to lend a hand to the villagers. His retainers are shocked when he offers to help. They think the heir to the throne should be more cautious and not take on monsters. But Taho is as stubborn as a mule, and he's already made up his mind. Since he's dead set on taking down the monster, his retainers have no choice but to back him up. Taho hops on a boat with a few other soldiers, ready to wait for the monster to show itself. As soon as the monster starts making ripples in the water, Taho puts his plan into action. Turns out, they've already tied ropes to their boats and secured them to trees to keep the boats from drifting away. This way, they can hold their position and force the monster to come to them. Taho is a skilled swordsman, and using his talent, he manages to slice off one of the crab's pincers. The crab realizes it's about to get swamped, so it dives into the water to hide. It starts attacking the boats from below, making Taho and his crew retreat back to shore. Taho figures that fighting the crab in the water is a bad idea, so they need to find a way to take it on out of the water. One of his guys suggests rigging explosives to blow the crab to bits when it swallows them. Taho isn't down with that plan because he actually cares about his crew and doesn't want to lose any of them. Taho is set on protecting his dad's land, so he's determined to find a way to take down the crab. A moment later, an idea hits him, and he gathers everyone together. He tells the villagers he's going to need their help to beat the crab monster. Everyone is ready to back Taho as long as they can take the monster out. The villagers chop down big trees in the forest, and with those, they build a lock gate that they carefully place in a part of the lake. Once the whole plan is ready, they lure the crab out. When the crab is in the spot they want, they use the lock gate to drain the water in that area, leaving the crab wide open for whatever they want to do. Now face to face with the crab, Taho vows to take it down. He and his crew charge at the monster, landing several cuts on its body. Meanwhile, the villagers grab stones to throw at the crab. This gives the crab an idea, and it uses its pincers to grab the stones and smash the lock gate, letting water flow back to where it is. This totally messes up their plans because now the crab is back in its element. Just when the crab is about to take out one of Taho's guys, Hayaki shows up out of nowhere and takes down the monster, saving Taho's friend. Hayaki is standing on the monster's body, looking all badass. It seems like fate is finally bringing him back to his family. Since it's the first time in 16 years, he'll be around someone from his own blood. Taho is even more amazed when he finds out that Hayaki is blind, but can still throw down like that. Taho thanks Hayaki for saving his friends and the village too. Dororo jumps in and reminds him that their help doesn't come for free. She asks for payment, and Taho hands it over without a fuss. Dororo then asks Taho where they can make even more cash, and he points to his dad's province, saying it's packed with opportunities. Before they take off, Taho asks Hayaki his name, and he's happy to share it. Hayaki and Dororo hit the town and start wandering around to see what they can spend their loot on. Meanwhile, there's this weird lady in town talking about a demon child. She spots Hayaki and freaks out. Dororo's handling the cash, so she gets to buy whatever she wants. Plus, this is the biggest payout they've scored since they kicked off their monster hunting gig. They catch a stage play, and Dororo suggests they check it out. The old priest is in the crowd too, and it looks like they've run into him again. After the show, the old man tells Dororo he's there to investigate the shrine in the area because he thinks Daigo is hiding something there. Before he leaves, the old priest looks deep into Hayaki's soul and realizes he's killed some people while they've been apart. He warns Hayaki to be careful not to go to the dark side. The old old man heads off to do his thing while Dororo suggests they enjoy more of the town before moving on. As they stroll around, Dororo hears from a local about a place called Banmon, where there are spirits too. Apparently, it used to be a fort that got burned down, but the Asakura army still takes out Daigo folks around the old fort. Dororo and Hayaki decide to check it out, and when they get there, they run into a strange kid. The kid warns them to steer clear of the fort because it's bad news. There are also Asakura soldiers lurking around, ready to capture anyone from Daigo's territory. Anyone they catch gets tied up at Banmon Fort and shot with arrows. The weird kid they met spills that his village is on the other side of the fort, but the Asakura clan has taken it over. He's still planning to sneak across the fort and get back to his village since he hasn't seen his family since the war kicked off. On top of that, he's freaked out about the monsters lurking around. Dororo reassures him that Hayaki is there to handle any monster trouble, so he doesn't need to stress. Once the kid warms up to them, he introduces himself as Suk. Meanwhile, Hayaki's mom finds out her son is alive, but her husband isn't ready to welcome him back. In fact, the guy is out for blood. He wants to take Hayaki out for messing with the land's good fortune by not just dying when he was supposed to. That night, Daigo heads out to find Hayaki. At the same time, Hayaki and the boys are gearing up to tackle the Banmon monster chilling around the Banmon fort. They were expecting one monster, but it turns out to be a whole pack of spirit foxes. Hayaki's got a lot on his plate if he's gonna take these monsters down. He starts slicing through them, and Suk decides it's his chance to cross the fort. Dororo tries to stop him because it's risky, but Suk's already made his move. Hayaki then clears a path for Dororo to chase after Suk, leaving him to handle the monsters alone. Meanwhile, Taho is dead set on figuring out what his dad is hiding. He also runs into that strange lady who's always talking about the demon child. It seems like she knows something he doesn't, so he decides to grill her. The fight between Hayaki and the monsters goes on, and at one point, the foxes team up and take him down. Meanwhile, Suk looks like he's been captured by the Asakura soldiers. Hayaki manages to chop down the monster, and just when things are about to heat up, it gets even crazier. Daigo shows up with his armed crew. On the flip side, Taho has now found out how his dad sacrificed his son to the demons. Hayaki peeks into his dad's soul to confirm he's a real jerk. His dad then hits him with a nasty comment, calling him a demon child. Even though Hayaki isn't your typical kid, those words hit hard as he bolts away from his father. Meanwhile, Dororo's also been captured along with Suk. When Dororo comes to, he finds himself in a prison with other inmates waiting for their doom. Suk's in the same cell, and when Dororo asks about his village, Suk says it's completely wiped out. Suk's village is gone because the Asakura clan destroyed it. In the cell, Dororo spots a familiar emblem, one he usually sees with Hayaki. He asks the guy holding it, and the guy tells him it's from the Daigo clan. That's when it hits Dororo that Hayaki might actually be a clan heir. He looks up and sees a small hole in the ceiling they could use to escape. Dororo suggests he and Suk make a break for it through the hole since they're the only ones who can fit, but Suk refuses. He tells Dororo to go instead. Meanwhile, Taho heads home to confront his mom about what he just heard. While Dororo tries to escape, the guards catch wind of it and almost take him out, but Suk and the other inmates hold them back. While arguing with his mom, Taho's dad shows up to tell him he only did what was necessary for the clan and the region's progress. In the middle of the argument, Hayaki appears on the roof. His mom is thrilled to see him and calls him her son, but his dad wants him gone. He orders his men to go after Hayaki, but the kid manages to get away. Taho tries to defend his brother, but Daigo scolds him, saying sacrifices need to be made, and Hayaki is one of them. Not long after, the Asakura clan gathers the inmates to hang them at the Banmon fort as a sign of war. Later, Taho rides through the land, seeing how prosperous it is, and starts to think he might actually need to take out his brother to keep the peace. Taho goes to the shrine, but gets pushed out by the demons. Dororo meets up with Hayaki after escaping, and Hayaki shares his joy that his mom actually called him her son. Shortly after, the war between Asakura and Daigo kicks off. Meanwhile, Taho's mom has escaped from the house because she wants to see her son. As the battle heats up that night, the Balmon monsters show up again. Hayaki arrives just in time to take on the monster. One of Daigo's guys, the squad leader who killed Mio, is on the battlefield. He recognizes Hayaki and freaks out. Hayaki also spots the jerk, and just when he's about to lose it, Dororo holds him back. Just then, Taho shows up, and Dororo is already stoked that the guy is there to fix things. But Taho drops a bombshell. He wants to kill his brother so the land can stay prosperous. He admits that Hayaki has had a rough life, but now he sees him as a necessary sacrifice, just like their dad did. Hayaki and Taho clash swords while Dororo tries to free Suk from the crumbling fort. Hayaki hesitates to fight his brother, but Taho is all in. In the chaos, Hayaki ends up slicing Taho in the eye while rushing to take down a monster that's after Suk and Dororo. Just then, Taho's mom shows up, saying how much she's missed her son. Dororo thinks she's there to help, but then they all realize she's also ready to sacrifice Hayaki. Taho's mom tells Hayaki that the demons can have him as long as they get to live. She makes things way worse by spilling her own blood, giving the demons even more power. The spirits in the area get stronger and tear down what's left of the fort, while the soldiers bail to save themselves. Once everything calms down, Suk's family arrives, telling him they managed to escape before the clan wiped out the village. Dororo sees this as a win because they've reunited Suk with his family, even though things are about to get even crazier. After Hayaki and Dororo leave the Daigo region, Hayaki struggles to find his footing because his mental health took a serious hit from everything he heard from his mom and brother. He gets a kick out of taking down monsters, and even when Dororo tries to talk some sense into him, he just brushes her off. Dororo suggests hitting up a hot spring, but Hayaki isn't having it. Dororo finally gets Hayaki to tag along by tricking him into thinking there are monsters at the spring. Meanwhile, there's this creepy dude who literally drags innocent people to a Buddha statue to slice off their faces for some twisted reason. He sacrificed a bunch of faces, but the statue hasn't found the right one yet. Later, Hayaki and Dororo reach the spring, and while they're wandering around, Dororo spots a waterfall up ahead. Behind the waterfall is the Buddha carving, and as they walk toward it, the psycho shows up behind her. When Dororo turns around, she sees the face of her dead mom. She gets close to the psycho, and since she's vulnerable to her mom's presence, she trusts him. The lady, Okaka, then takes Dororo and Hayaki to her hut and tells them a story about a carver who couldn't finish face for a Buddha statue, which made him a failure and caused people to forget him. The carver got super depressed about his pointless life and ended up dying. Okaka serves them rice porridge, and after Hayaki finishes his, he falls asleep really fast. Dororo thinks it's because he hasn't been sleeping well lately. Dororo is stoked to see her mom and starts calling Okaka mom, but after she finishes her food, she starts feeling woozy, and that's when Okaka admits she spiked the meal. As Dororo passes out, Okaka tells her the full story about the carver. It turns out the Buddha statue is possessed by a vengeful spirit that wanted a face, so it brought the dead carver back to life to get it one. And guess what? That carver is Okaka herself. Okaka tells Dororo she looks beautiful, but can't sacrifice her to the statue, which leaves Hayaki as the only option. Okaka is pretty sure the statue will accept Hayaki's face. Soon after, Dororo wakes up to find Okaka dragging an unconscious Hayaki to the waterfall. She runs after Okaka and tries to stop her. She manages to halt Okaka, giving Hayaki a chance to wake up. Hayaki tries to take Okaka down, but she dodges him quickly. The statue blasts Hayaki with its breath, sending him tumbling into the water below. Under the water are all the people Okaka has sacrificed for the statue. Hayaki manages to swim back up and goes after the statue with a vengeance. Okaka tries to trick him, but her plan flops because she can't change her face to look like Hayaki's mom. The thing is, Hayaki has never seen his mom's face, so he doesn't know what she looked like. So, Okaka usually pulls a fast one by turning into her victims' moms to trick them, but when that plan flops, she gets violent. She grabs Hayaki with some magical ropes, all set to hand him over to the statue, but Dororo sneaks up from behind and calls her out on all the messed up stuff she's doing. She reminds Okaka that she sacrificed innocent people who have families too, and that really hits home for Okaka. She starts to rethink her choices, but the statue isn't having it. It wants a puppet that can actually do the job. It swings its giant sword at Okaka, and she goes down hard. The statue then goes after Hayaki, but he's quicker and manages to reach it first. Okaka takes a swing at the statue's face, and it shatters into pieces, taking it out for good. Once the statue is gone, the magic keeping Okaka alive fades away, and she gets to die as a pure person again. After all that drama, Hayaki finally agrees to hit up a hot spring. Dororo assures him there are no monsters there, and it seems like Hayaki is just ready to chill in the warm water. When they get to the hot spring, Dororo tells Hayaki to look away, even though the poor kid is blind. Once they settle into the water, an old creepy priest lets them know he's been there before they even showed up. A little while later, some other kids join them in the water. That's when they notice a drawing on Dororo's back that looks a lot like a map. The drawing only showed up because of the warm water. We get the backstory on how the map came to be. Turns out, Dororo's dad hid a ton of treasure, and the directions to it are tattooed on Dororo's back. He put half the map on his wife's back and carved the other half on Dororo so she could use it when the time was right. Dororo knows about the map because her mom showed it to her before she passed away, telling her to memorize it, which she did. The map on Dororo's back is only visible when it gets warmed up. The old priest tells Dororo that this hidden wealth could change the world, so she needs to be careful with it when she's ready. At the same time, he warns Hayaki that killing demons won't change anything and could actually hurt him. Hayaki might want his body back, but the priest thinks it's not worth it. Despite what the priest said, Hayaki isn't ready to give up on getting his body back. He and Dororo keep going and soon meet a baby monster that takes a liking to Dororo. She's freaked out by the monster baby, but Hayaki lets it carry her because he knows it means no harm. After walking for a few hours, they stumble upon a burned down temple. While checking it out, Hayaki figures out that the temple was torched by some outside force. The monster baby is still having fun with Dororo, but vanishes when a strange dude shows up at the temple. Hayaki checks the guy out and sees some evil in him. The man introduces himself as Sabame and invites them to his place if they're tired from traveling. They agree to follow him, and as they head to his house, Dororo asks Hayaki if the guy is bad news, but Hayaki can't quite put his finger on it yet. A little later, they reach the village, but Dororo keeps wondering where the monster baby went. Sabame welcomes them into his home and even throws a little party for them because he wants to hear their stories. Dororo is curious about the ruined temple and asks Sabame about it. Sabame spills that the temple used to be a nunnery, but the kids there were treated terribly by the nuns. This went on until lightning struck and burned the place down. He tells them he regrets not doing anything about it before, but we all know he's lying. So, Sabame says they're now praying for the lost souls, hoping they find peace after death. Hayaki asks about the ghoul he spotted nearby, and Sabame tells him it's the soul of a nun who hasn't moved on yet. Sabame assures them they can hang out in the village for as long as they want. Later that night, Dororo asks Hayaki if he believes what Sabame said, but he's not buying it. Dororo is sure the truth will come out eventually. She's a bit worried about a demon showing up, but she's not scared as long as Hayaki's by her side. Lying there, she thinks about the riches her parents left her, and remembers what the old guy said about how wealth can change the world. But there are risks too, since if the money ends up in the wrong hands, it could be used for bad stuff. Not long after, Dororo spots a monster looming above them. At first, she thinks she's seeing things because Hayaki isn't reacting to the creepy caterpillar monster. Just when the monster lunges at them, Hayaki jumps up and slices it back. The monster spits silk at Hayaki and tries to escape, realizing it's no match for him, but Hayaki breaks free and goes after it, stabbing it in the chest. The monster hits the ground but won't give up. Then, the caterpillar's mom, a moth monster, shows up. It releases some annoying gas to push Hayaki and Dororo away, while grabbing its kid and bailing. To avoid any future issues, Hayaki and Dororo decide to clean themselves off, since they don't know what that moth gas is made of. Meanwhile, it looks like Sabame actually knows what's going down in the village. The moth monster runs to him, and Sabame reassures it that he'll make sure Dororo and Hayaki become its next meal. The next morning, Sabame rolls in like nothing happened last night. They get served some food while Sabame takes the chance to brag about how rich the village is. He tells them that the village is living it up because they're blessed by the heavens. He also lets them know they can stick around as long as they want. Later, Dororo and Hayaki split up to snoop around the village and see what Sabame is hiding. Dororo runs around the village but doesn't spot anything weird. Everything looks totally normal, just like any regular village. In fact, the villagers love Sabame because things turned around for the better during his time. They're living in peace all thanks to him. Dororo bumps into an old woman, but when she asks about the temple, the woman makes up an excuse to bail. Meanwhile, Hayaki is tailing Sabame to see if he's hiding any skeletons in his closet. He follows him to a hill near the village. That's when Sabame casually mentions that he knows Hayaki's been following him. Dororo finds a storehouse packed with rice and other supplies, showing just how wealthy the village really is. As Dororo is about to leave the warehouse, she finds a trap door. Curious, she opens it, and suddenly someone pops up behind her and shoves her into the dark hole below. Back on the hill, Sabame is telling Hayaki how his ancestors protected the land before him and how he plans to keep that tradition going. He's not about to let anyone come in and wreck what he's built. Down in the warehouse, Dororo freaks out when she realizes she's surrounded by monsters. Turns out, Sabame then spills the tea on how bad things were in the village before he showed up. The village was dealing with a lot of insecurity, but everything changed when he met the moth monster. She took out all the troublemakers, and Sabame welcomed her into the village with open arms. Dororo is being chased by the monsters, and all she can think is that she doesn't want to die. Her fear gets even more real when she sees human skeletons on the ground. Just when she's about to become Monster Chow, a baby monster shows up to protect her. On the hill, Hayaki tells Sabame that he doesn't care about his reasons for keeping a monster in the village because he plans to wipe out all demons he encounters to get his body back. Back in the warehouse, Dororo discovers that Sabame is the one who torched the temple to feed the moth monster with kids. The souls of the sacrificed kids plead with Dororo to do whatever it takes to get rid of the caterpillars. Just then, the caterpillars start transforming into full-blown moth monsters, and Sabame laughs at Hayaki, saying he'll soon be Monster Chow. The monsters charge at Hayaki, but he takes them down pretty easily. At this point, Hayaki figures out that all monsters are basically the same. Sabame is stunned when he sees that the monsters can't touch Hayaki. One of the monsters sends Hayaki flying, but he manages to slice it down before crashing hard to the ground. Things get worse when the moth monster spits fire on the village, and before long, the flames spread. Dororo finds Hayaki and wakes him up, telling him the village is going up in smoke. Sabame stands in front of the burning village, realizing that everything he's worked for is going up in flames. It doesn't take long for the villagers to start fighting because they know they'll starve when winter hits. Sabame is lost in his thoughts and doesn't even pay attention to his so-called citizens. Hayaki snaps back to full consciousness and hops on a boat to go after the hiding moth monster. After taking down the monster, Hayaki's braces fall off. giving him a real spine and bones. When everything calms down, all Dororo sees is destruction. She's starting to think the old priest might have been right after all. It looks like all they leave behind is chaos and suffering. Dororo tries to convince Hayaki to give up his revenge quest, but he's too deep in that path to turn back. All Hayaki wants is his body, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to get it. Meanwhile, Taho is training hard for when he finally runs into his brother. Hayaki leaves Dororo to walk on her own, and just when he's not paying attention, Itachi and his crew roll up to Dororo. It looks like Itachi knows about the treasures and the map. He's been searching for Dororo, so she can guide him to the treasure. Itachi insists that Dororo show him the rest of the map, but she claims she doesn't know anything about it. He checks her back to see if there's anything hidden, but finds nothing. Still, Itachi decides to take her along since he has half the map and thinks Dororo will eventually cooperate. When they set up camp for the night, Itachi shares how he discovered that her dad was hiding money. He tried to track down the stash by following the boss, but Dororo's dad is super careful, and Itachi never figured out where the cash was. Later, he found the grave where Dororo buried her mom, and being the creep he is, he dug it up. That's when he found the map on her back, but he knew it wasn't complete and that the rest had to be with Dororo. She can't believe Itachi is so heartless that he would dig up a grave. The next day, they hit a snag because they need a boat to reach their destination. They head to the nearest village to find one, but it's in ruins, totally deserted with no signs of life. Even the boats they find are wrecked. Just when they're about to lose hope, a one-armed kid shows up, claiming he can help. He's the only survivor in the village and says militants wiped everyone out. The kid tells them his fee is pretty steep, but Itachi doesn't care. Dororo tries to warn him, but he's too focused on the treasure. Once they agree, the kid brings 2 boats to take them to the island. Things take a turn when they discover the boats are being pulled by 2 sharks. The one-armed kid seems to know the sharks well. He even named them. When they ask what happened to his arm, he casually reveals he fed it to the sharks because he loves them. He also mentions that the sharks were the ones who took out the whole village. Itachi freaks out and pulls his sword, demanding the kid turn the boat around. But the kid isn't scared. He's got the sharks on his side. He commands the sharks to attack, and before they know it, one of the boats goes down. Itachi watches in horror as the shark devours his men. The shark boy decides to save Itachi and his crew for later. He hops on one of the sharks and rides off, leaving the other shark to keep an eye on the crew. Itachi is hurt and starts to think this might be the end for him. He tells Dororo how the samurais he worked for betrayed him, and it finally hits him that his boss was right. Samurais can't be trusted. Itachi realizes that the treasure his boss is hiding is going to be massive, and that's why he wanted to find it. Dororo sees that Itachi is about to give up, so she gives him a serious pep talk to remind him they're not done yet. Motivated by her words, Itachi tells his men to get their act together. Dororo comes up with a risky plan to take down the shark. She ties a rope around herself and dives into the water to lure it in. Itachi and his crew are lying in wait, ready to strike when the shark shows its ugly face. As soon as the shark spots Dororo in the water, it goes after her. She tugs on the rope, and the guys pull her back to the boat. The shark jumps out of the water in anger, but it's not in for a good surprise. Itachi and his crew are already armed with swords, and before the shark knows what's happening, it gets stabbed multiple times, leading to its demise. The crew cheers, but Dororo reminds them they need to get to the island before the Shark Boy comes back. So, they head to the island. That evening, Shark Boy arrives to find out one of his favorite sharks has been taken out. The shark is dragged to shore, and while he mourns, Itachi and his crew surround him. They beat him up, and Itachi plans to kill him until Dororo talks him out of it. Itachi leaves the guy alive, but not without giving him a serious beating. Once the shark guy is out of the way, Itachi turns to Dororo and asks where the treasure is hidden. Dororo refuses to spill the beans, so Itachi strips her down. Even he's shocked to discover Dororo is a girl, raised by her dad to look like a boy on purpose. Itachi finds nothing on her, and is about to give up when the fire warms her back, revealing a hidden map. Now that Itachi has what he needs, he ties Dororo to a tree and heads off to find the treasure. While they're gone, the Shark Boy wakes up and vows to take revenge on the whole crew for taking out his beloved shark. Jukai is still all about helping people who are missing limbs or just need a hand. He's on a battlefield doing his thing when a monster rolls in. The monster takes out an old guy Jukai was with, but leaves Jukai alive for some strange reason. Monsters just don't seem to mess with him. Then, Hayaki shows up and takes down the monster. Jukai is totally shocked to see Hayaki. It's been ages since they last met. Jukai walks over to Hayaki and gently touches his face like a dad would to his kid. He brings Hayaki back to his cave and fights the urge to call him his son, even though he raised him. Jukai is still questioning if he did the right thing by giving Hayaki everything he needed to become a killer. Hayaki tells Jukai he needs a new prosthetic left leg because his current one is busted. Jukai doesn't respond right away, but makes sure Hayaki gets some food. While he's munching, Jukai learns that Daigo is Hayaki's dad. Meanwhile, Hayaki's mom is recovering from her own injuries. Jukai can't believe Hayaki has the power to either save or destroy Daigo's country. He decides not to make a new leg for Hayaki because he knows Hayaki will just go out and fight monsters again. Jukai sees that Hayaki is more dangerous now. It's clear he's even killed humans. He's not about to build another leg for Hayaki because that'll just push him closer to seeking revenge. Suddenly, a landslide hits, blocking the cave entrance and trapping Jukai and Hayaki inside. At the same time, Daigo hears that Hayaki is near his territory. Meanwhile, Taho is trying way too hard to prove himself. so he takes on monster hunting just like his brother. Hayaki starts digging for an exit because he can't be stuck in the cave. Jukai asks him why he really needs his body back, but Hayaki doesn't have big reason. He just wants it back from the demons since it's his. He's ready to take out every demon he encounters to reclaim his body. Jukai warns Hayaki that his mission will only lead him to kill more humans. He explains that Daigo will do everything he can to stop him. In the process, Daigo will send his soldiers, and Hayaki will have no choice but to take them down. But even after all that, Hayaki doesn't care. His determination is off the charts, and before long, he breaks through the debris to make an exit from the cave. Taho and his crew run into a giant rat that's been taking people out to feed its kids. A wild fight breaks out between Taho's gang and the monster rat. The rat's just trying to protect its little ones, while Taho is all about keeping the land safe. Meanwhile, Hayaki gets jumped by a bunch of monster monkeys, but he slices through them like they're nothing. Jukai stands back, watching his creation, and it hits him that he might have messed up in raising Hayaki and giving him the tools to survive in this tough world. At this point, Jukai feels like nothing more than a demon. Hayaki takes out the monkeys and even destroys their nest to make sure they don't come back. Back in town, Taho and his crew finally take down the monster rat, and Taho coldly burns the house the rat was using as a nest. He vows not to let anything threaten the land's prosperity, and promises to take down anyone he sees as an enemy. When it's time for Hayaki and Jukai to part ways again, Hayaki gets really emotional. He acknowledges everything Jukai has done for him, and believes that Jukai is like his mother. This brings Jukai to tears as he says goodbye to the boy once more. One of the severed monster heads crawls over to Jukai and bites him, giving him a clue about why he's been spared all this time. He realizes he was just a dead man to the monsters, but Hayaki's words might have reignited something in him. Hayaki finally decides it's time to go after Dororo, who's been missing. At the same time, Taho's dad gives him an army to hunt down and kill Hayaki. Taho is totally on board with this, ready to check it off his bucket list. On the island, the shark boy calls on a living shark to eat its dead buddy so it can transform. After munching on its friend, the shark mutates and can crawl on land, which is super gross. It goes after Dororo, who's tied to a tree, and almost gets her until Hayaki shows up just in time. Hayaki slashes at the shark, trying to get it to back off, but the shark boy freaks out and tells the shark to take out Hayaki. A wild fight breaks out between the shark and Hayaki, but of course, Hayaki comes out on top. During the scuffle, the shark's tail slams the shark boy to the ground, knocking him out. After the fight, Hayaki is all happy that Dororo is okay and gives her cheeks a little rub. Something cool happens too. Hayaki grows a natural left arm from defeating the shark, so he doesn't need prosthetics anymore. The shark guy tries to guilt trip Hayaki, blaming him for killing the shark just because he wants a human body. But Dororo pulls Hayaki away before the psycho fills his head with negativity. Meanwhile, Itachi and his men are running into traps set by Dororo's dad. It's clear he's not just going to hide the treasure without guarding it. To make things worse, Taho and his gang just landed on the island. Itachi can't believe he has to deal with the samurais again. Taho's guys are out for blood, and quickly take down Itachi's men with arrows. Even Hayaki and Dororo start running for their lives before they get caught by the bloodthirsty Taho. Itachi and Dororo meet up, and Itachi comes up with a plan to deal with the samurais. He decides to use the island's traps to his advantage. Not long after, they start leading the samurais into explosive traps. But that doesn't shake Taho off their tail, and they soon run into that stubborn son of a bitch. Hayaki decides to take on Taho since he's itching for a fight. They clash, but Taho has his loyal retainers backing him up. Hayaki has some feelings for his brother, which makes him hold back during the fight. He asks Taho why he's so determined to kill him. Taho tells him that just being alive is causing problems for the nation, and that's why they want him dead. Hayaki is resting against a tree when one of Taho's retainers shoots him in the back with an arrow. It hurts, and soon he's overpowered by Taho and the other retainer. Hayaki's sword gets broken in the process, but Itachi and Dororo are still trying to find a place to hide. Itachi stumbles upon another clue that could lead them to the hidden treasure. He tries to figure it out, but before he can, he gets hit by arrows from the archers. He's stuck, paralyzed by the arrows sticking out of him. But Dororo manages to take out the archers by accidentally knocking over a bunch of statues. The statues crash down on the archers, taking them out of the fight. Meanwhile, Hayaki is still battling for his life against Taho and his annoying crew. Even though he's outnumbered 3-1 and has a broken sword, he keeps pushing through. Hayaki is getting really fed up with the whole situation. On the flip side, Dororo finds the entrance to the treasure stash, and Itachi begs her to let him see it before he kicks the bucket. Dororo agrees and helps Itachi get up. Just then, an obnoxious shark boy shows up with a bunch of explosives. He's ready to take everyone down with him. He lights the explosives and tells everyone on the island that blowing them up is his way of getting revenge for his shark. The explosives go off, and everyone starts running for their lives. Taho and his crew scramble down the steep hill because, obviously, they want to survive. This chaos gives Hayaki a chance to slip away from them. After the explosion settles, Hayaki gets up and starts starts searching for Dororo. One of Taho's guys gets hurt in the blast, forcing Taho to retreat, hoping his brother didn't make it. Dororo finds the treasure, but Itachi dies after catching a glimpse of the riches that could have been his. Hayaki eventually finds Dororo in the cave, and she tells him she's not ready to take the money just yet because she's not sure what to do with it. However, she grabs a few coins to help them out on their journey. Back on the mainland, Hayaki and Dororo set out to find a swordsman who can help Hayaki make new swords. They hear about a swordsman named Mune and head over to his place. There, they meet Mune's daughter, and Dororo explains why they're there. Hayaki gets a little strange when he touches the girl's face, leaving her with some funny ideas. The girl takes them to her dad and tells him they want to make swords, but she adds that Hayaki wants to marry her. Moon checks out the swords and tells them that Hayaki's old swords need to be purified first. He can tell that the swords have taken down a lot of demons. The group follows Moon to the temple, where the swords will be purified by a divine craftsman. Mune sets up the altar and tells Hayaki to put the swords on it, but Hayaki acts weird again by picking up Dororo and placing her on the altar instead. They all laugh it off, and the swords are finally put on the altar for purification. Hayaki and Dororo head back to the house while they wait for Mune to finish with the swords. Dororo is shocked when Hayaki says something really strange. Hayaki tells Dororo he doesn't need the swords anymore. Just then, Mune's daughter, Okawa, walks in with food. Dororo is even more shocked when she realizes that Hayaki and Okawa are talking about getting married. Hayaki doesn't seem to mind at all, and Dororo seriously wants to believe he's joking. She tries to figure out if they're for real, and when she realizes they are, she angrily storms out of the room. Dororo decides to investigate the whole situation. She puts on a funny mask and starts crawling around the rooftops like a ninja. She listens in on Hayaki and Okawa's conversation, and is blown away when she hears they're already planning their wedding. She falls off the roof and crashes into the house to confront Hayaki about what he's thinking. Dororo storms out again, but Hayaki doesn't even seem to care. That night, Dororo sneaks into Mune's workshop to throw away Hayaki's swords, since he claims he doesn't need them anymore. Just as she's doing this, Mune shows up wearing a scary mask. Dororo almost freaks out until Mune takes off the mask and reassures her he's not a monster. He asks why she's trying to get rid of the swords, and Dororo explains that Hayaki suddenly lost interest in their journey, which seems totally ridiculous to her. Dororo doesn't think Hayaki understands how she feels. She's been through a lot with him, and all she wants is to help him through tough times. She can't believe he's giving up on their journey. After pouring her heart out, Dororo falls asleep, and when she wakes up, she finds Mune working on the swords instead of being at Okawa's wedding. Mune insists that making swords is more important to him than anything else, and he's sure his daughter knows that too. Mune's goal has always been to create swords not to kill, but to show opponents they're outmatched. He wants enemies to feel the power of the sword and just give up. Mune doesn't want to use his skills to kill, he wants to help. That's when it hits Dororo that she's been talking in opposites. At the same time, she realizes Hayaki has been acting strange too. Dororo senses something's off about the temple, so she rushes over to check it out. When she gets there, she finds a spirit guy happily napping after causing some chaos. Dororo throws a rock at the ghoul to knock him down. Just then, Hayaki and Okawa arrive at the temple for their wedding. The ghoul then casts a spell on Hayaki to make him go after Dororo. Hayaki pins Dororo to the ground and starts to choke her. He's about to finish her off when Mune swoops in and knocks out the ghoul with a club to the head. Once the ghoul is out cold, everyone goes back to normal, and Hayaki hugs Dororo. It finally clicks for Okawa and Hayaki that they only wanted the wedding because of the ghoul's spell. They break off their engagement, but Okawa quickly gets a new suitor who has always liked her. Later, Mune gives Hayaki his new well-sharpened swords. Hayaki tests out the swords and is happy with how they feel. Once everything is settled, Hayaki and Dororo grab their stuff and hit the road again. Not long after, Taho starts to think that his brother might still be alive. Things in the area are getting worse, not better. Meanwhile, Hayaki is still on his mission to take down demons. He and Dororo soon arrive in a vibrant region that seems free of demons. They bump into a samurai who claims he's there to hunt the same beast they are. The samurai says he's been tracking the beast for 6 months. To back up his story, he shows them claw marks on his chest. Apparently, the beast killed his mother, and that's why he's after it. After a quick chat with the samurai, Hayaki suggests they move on. They're there to kill a demon, not to chit-chat with a stranger. They reach the beast's lair, and Dororo promises the samurai they'll avenge his mother. The beast soon appears, looking even scarier than the ones they've faced before. It has several monster bodies fused together, with serpent-like legs and a body like a big cat. Hayaki charges at the demon and lands a few hits. Just then, the samurai jumps into the fray, and both Hayaki and Dororo are shocked to see him backing the beast. Dororo can't believe it and asks the samurai why he's fighting for a monster that killed his mom. The samurai replies that his mother is already gone, and there's nothing he can do to bring her back. Instead, he's decided to send others to the afterlife to join her. That's why he made a deal with the beast to bring it food to satisfy his twisted cravings. He also gets a kick out of watching his victims beg for help before the beast takes them out. The beast charges at Hayaki and Dororo, but the ground beneath them gives way, and they fall. Meanwhile, Hayaki's mom realizes that out of the 12 demons meant to eat her son, one didn't. That's why Hayaki survived the attack at birth. Dororo passes out from the fall, and when she wakes up, she sees Hayaki standing over her. She tries to move but struggles because her hand is stuck in the rubble. To make matters worse, water starts gushing up from the ground. Hayaki gets anxious and tries to pull the rocks off her, but he keeps failing. A flashback shows the samurai and his mom traveling through the forest when they were attacked by the same beast he now protects. He gets slashed in the chest while his mom is left exposed for the beast to devour. The water has completely covered the spot where Dororo is sitting, and she's drowning. Hayaki is super frustrated and starts banging his head against a rock. Just when Dororo is about to lose her life, the old priest shows up to help. He uses his sword to clear away the debris and pulls Dororo out from under the water. Hayaki is relieved that Dororo is safe, but that just makes him angrier because she would have died if the old man hadn't stepped in. Hayaki gets even more determined to get his body back and heads into the forest to take down the beast. When Hayaki reaches the beast's lair, he looks all furious and ready to fight. The samurai thinks the beast's scary appearance will freak Hayaki out, but he's totally wrong. The beast charges at Hayaki, but he blocks the attack and throws it off. The samurai can't believe Hayaki isn't scared, and we get another flashback into the samurai's past. Turns out, he was a coward who couldn't save his mom. She actually survived the beast's attack, but out of fear, he cut off her hand, leaving her at the beast's mercy. The samurai comes back to the village with a heavy heart. Some guys show up to help him get revenge for his mom, but instead of fighting the beast, he enjoys watching those guys get torn apart while they beg for their lives. He tries to convince himself that everyone would be scared if they saw the beast, so he shouldn't be blamed for his mom's death. The samurai wants to project his fear onto everyone else, but seeing Hayaki bravely fight the beast proves him wrong. Hayaki manages to slice off part of the beast's head, but the samurai throws himself to the beast so it can mutate and become even scarier. Even with that, Hayaki still takes down the beast. He goes a bit wild after defeating it, cutting into the beast's corpse like a maniac. When the old priest sees this, he realizes that Hayaki is slowly losing his humanity without even noticing. Blinded by rage, Hayaki decides to go after Daigo to get his full body back from whatever demon took it. Dororo tries to talk Hayaki out of heading to Daigo's territory, but Hayaki's mind is made up. Meanwhile, the Asakura clan is gearing up for war against Daigo. As they make their way to Daigo's land, one of Daigo's spies spots them. Without wasting any time, Daigo mobilizes his army for battle and even takes horses from local farmers to prepare for war. One farmer loses a beautiful white horse he's cared for, as the soldiers take it by force, injuring the horse in the process. Later, Daigo hears about Hayaki coming into his territory. Instead of sending an army he can't afford right now, he sends Taho to track down the boy. Taho sets out to find Hayaki, bringing along two of his most trusted guys. Daigo also sends the spy to keep an eye on Taho in case things go sideways. Taho's retainers have suffered from war, so they're not thrilled about the whole situation. They were saved by Daigo to serve Taho, and that's what they've been doing. Once Taho is ready, he and his crew head out to find Hayaki. At the same time, Hayaki's mom is starting to worry about him. Hayaki and Dororo bump into a guy who warns them to turn back so they don't get caught in the war between the two nations. But Hayaki is fuming and threatens the man by pulling out his sword. Dororo is also angry and shoves a girl to the ground for trying to stop him. Dororo tells Hayaki she doesn't want him to change, but Hayaki insists he just wants to be a normal human. He wants to feel and see like everyone else, leaving Dororo confused. While Hayaki isn't wrong for wanting to be normal, Dororo doesn't want him to lose himself in the process. While Taho is out hunting for Hayaki, Daigo is leading his men against the Asakura clan. Soon enough, Taho and his guys find Hayaki. This time, Hayaki is ready for a fight, putting Taho at a serious disadvantage. Taho has his retainers backing him up, but it's not enough against the bloodthirsty Hayaki. As the fight heats up, Hayaki quickly injures Taho. Both of Taho's retainers lose an arm in the chaos. Hayaki is about to finish off one of the male retainers when Taho jumps in to block the attack. They clash again, and this time, Hayaki cuts Taho in the same eye. Taho clutches his face in pain, realizing Hayaki is the real deal. Furious, Taho vows to kill Hayaki, but just then, Daigo's spy swoops in to intervene. The spy is riding the stolen white horse and has strapped explosives to it. He pushes Hayaki off a cliff while making a getaway with the horse. Dororo tries to chase after her brother, but the spy grabs her and holds her hostage. He tells Taho to retreat, saying it's an order from his father. When the spy sees Taho isn't backing down, he knocks him out with a sedative. The retainers don't like the spy using Dororo as a shield, but they can't do anything since they're both injured and one-handed. They ride away as Dororo calls for Hayaki, hoping he survived the explosion and the fall. Later, the horse comes back as a vengeful spirit, and things are about to get way worse. As Dororo is being taken away, the crew rides past Jukai, who spots the family emblem that clearly shows they're Daigo's guys. Meanwhile, Hayaki has healed up from his injury, probably thanks to that vengeful white horse now turned ghoul. Hayaki is angrier than ever because the enemy had the guts to snatch Dororo away from him. Taho's retainers are sent to a rehab camp to recover. Things aren't looking too good for the female retainer since she caught a disease before heading to war. She's quarantined in a room to keep her from spreading it to others. The female retainer begs the male retainer to keep Taho alive, and Taho promises the lady that she's got her back. Meanwhile, Dororo finds herself stuck in a cell. but she's shocked when Hayaki's mom shows up to rescue her. Hayaki's mom wants Dororo to reunite with her son so he can hold on to his humanity. She's curious about Hayaki, but Dororo calls her out, reminding her that she pushed him away when he needed her. When the guards almost catch them, the woman lets Dororo hide in her clothes, and for a moment, Dororo feels the warmth of a mother's embrace. The woman sneaks Dororo through a hidden route out of the palace. At the same time, the female retainer breaks out of her room and heads to the shrine. Dororo and Hayaki's mom make it outside the palace, but the woman decides to follow Dororo because she wants to see her son. Elsewhere, Hayaki and the horse are on a mission to wreck everything that belongs to Daigo. Dororo and Hayaki's mom hop on a boat together, but things don't go as planned when the boat goes over a waterfall, and Dororo passes out. Later, she wakes up to the white horse baby licking her face. Once she's back to her senses, she sees the old priest is there too. Dororo asks the old man if he saw Hayaki's mom, and he takes her to where the woman is. They find themselves in some sort of refugee camp, and Daigo's wife is helping out. Everything is turning upside down. Some are blaming Daigo, while others aren't. Some folks think he did what he did for the country and its people. A few people are even ready to fight for Daigo, if it means keeping the peace and prosperity they have. The old man then asks Dororo what her plans are, but she doesn't seem to have a clue yet. Dororo finds Hayaki's mom by the stream, and the woman tells her how her son was just a regular kid when he was born, but everything changed in an instant. Dororo tells the woman that she's worried Hayaki might turn into a demon if they don't do something about it. The demonic side of Hayaki is getting stronger every day, and that's not a good sign. Just then, some guys rush in to say Daigo's army is fighting on two fronts. There's some confusion about whether Asakura has two armies, but that seems pretty unlikely. One guy mentions how scared soldiers are, and all they can talk about is that a demon is coming. Turns out, that demon is Hayaki, who's now riding this furious white horse. He's got a demonic vibe around him, as he easily takes down the soldiers in his way. Taho's female retainer finally makes it to the shrine and offers the 12th demon a deal. This is the demon that couldn't take over Hayaki's body. The retainer pleads with the demon to take her instead, promising that the demon will protect the land in return. A gust of air surrounds the retainer like the deal is about to go through. Taho and the other retainers show up just in time, telling her to stop what she's doing. They try to pull her back, but she reminds them that she's infected, which doesn't seem to bother the two guys. Suddenly, the deal falls apart, and the demons only want Hayaki Maru, who's seen as Daigo's heir. That was the deal they made long ago, and they're not backing down. Lightning strikes the shrine, and Taho screams in pain while calling out Hayaki Maru's name. Meanwhile, Dororo and Hayaki's mom are looking for Hayaki. Dororo doesn't want to believe that Hayaki is the demon everyone's scared of. On the flip side, Hayaki is taking out soldiers while demanding that they give Dororo back to him. Not long after, Hayaki runs into Taho and his retainers. It turns out the demons later gave the trio some demonic powers, and now the retainers have arms. Taho even got two eyes back where he was injured. Hayaki sees this and gets furious because those are his last missing body parts, and he wants them back. Taho and Hayaki Maru charge at each other and clash swords. Taho vows to take down Hayaki Maru and claim his body so prosperity can return to the land. The vengeful horse's kid is acting all crazy, running away from home, and now the farmer and his buddies are chasing after it. Meanwhile, Hayaki and his brother are still going at it, swords clashing hard. Dororo is close enough to see the fight, but the old man shows up and tells her to stay out of it because she'll just get hurt. He warns her that these guys aren't acting normal anymore, which makes them super dangerous. The last demon standing wants Hayaki's head, all thanks to Daigo making a deal with the demons. The angry horse is taking on the retainers when its kid shows up. The male retainer is already in trouble with the horse, but it pulls back. Just when the horse gets distracted by its kid, the male retainer stabs it. The female retainer jumps in too, but that just makes the horse even angrier. It rips off the male retainer's head and delivers a brutal kick to the other one. The two retainers use the last of their life force to stab the horse again, making sure they go down with it. The vengeful horse collapses as its kid rushes over to give it a kiss. Taho ignores the fight with Hayaki and runs to his dying friends. The moment the two retainers kick the bucket, Hayaki gets his two arms back. Taho comes after Hayaki, forcing him to hold his swords with just his palms to defend himself. Hayaki drops to the ground, breathing hard. His mom tries to talk to him, but Taho stops her, seeing Hayaki as just a lifeless thing. Taho calls Hayaki a curse that needs to be erased. In that moment, Hayaki stands up and bolts, but Taho is right on his tail. Dororo starts crying because she doesn't want Hayaki to turn into a demon. Taho keeps chasing Hayaki through the grasslands until Hayaki finally decides to stand his ground. He wraps his palm with a cloth to hold his sword without getting hurt. Hayaki goes on the offensive, and Taho realizes Hayaki now has a longer reach thanks to his new arms. It's Taho's turn to retreat, but Hayaki chases after him. The doctor sees them and gets worried about Hayaki. Meanwhile, Dororo is trying to think of a solution. She gets an idea when someone mentions what makes a country great. Dororo realizes they've been taking advantage of Hayaki's goodwill, while they should be working for their own success. On the battlefield, Daigo jumps into the fight against Asakura, leaving Taho to handle Hayaki because he thinks Taho will win. After all, He's the heir to the land, right? Taho makes it to the castle and tells everyone to clear out before things get messy. Hayaki tracks him down and meets him at the castle. Dororo decides to follow Hayaki too. Taho waits in a room for Hayaki, looking all cool like an action figure. As soon as Hayaki walks in, he attacks Taho without wasting any time. He's not in the mood for chit-chat because his eyes are what matter most to him right now. They keep clashing swords, but Hayaki's at a disadvantage fighting indoors, which limits his sword reach. That's exactly why Taho brought him to the castle, to get the upper hand. Their battle starts a fire, and now the whole castle is going up in flames. Hayaki's mom decides to go after her two sons. She might not be able to do much, but hey, she's their mom. As Dororo heads to the castle, she prays that Hayaki doesn't turn into a demon because she's figured out a way to fix everything. She wants to get there in time and hopes Hayaki doesn't lose his way before she arrives. Taho and Hayaki keep fighting, even as the building crumbles around them. Taho yells at Hayaki, telling him that the castle isn't his and he shouldn't be there. Taho insists the castle belongs to Daigo, but this only makes Hayaki want it even more. Their fight goes on as Taho claims Hayaki has no right to be in the castle. Taho tries to convince Hayaki that he's the rightful heir since he was born and raised there, while Hayaki is just an outsider. But as Taho talks, Hayaki realizes Taho is missing something too, just like him. Dororo shows up at the castle, but instead of going in, the old man tells her to stay outside because Hayaki's mom is sneaking in through a secret entrance. Hayaki's mom gets inside with help from Jukai, who's already there. It's the first time he sees her, but he instantly knows she's Hayaki's mom. The fight between Hayaki and Taho heats up, but Hayaki gains the upper hand. He has a chance to behead Taho but decides against it. Instead, he slices Taho's sword, leaving Taho shocked. Taho immediately runs out of steam and asks Hayaki why he didn't finish him off. Hayaki says he spared him because they're the same. He believes his brother is just as human as he is. Just when it seems like everything is winding down, the demons aren't ready to let that happen. They activate Taho's demonic energy, forcing him to rip out Hayaki's eyes and hand them over. Hayaki receives his eyes, completing his body parts. Dororo, tired of waiting outside, rushes into the burning castle to save Hayaki. A demonic aura rises from the ground, but Hayaki pushes his sword into it, sending it away. He collapses from the pain of getting his eyes, but his mom and Jukai are there to help him. Hayaki's mom hugs him tightly, apologizing for not fighting for him when she should have. She confesses her deep love for him. Just then, they hear Dororo calling for Hayaki, and the adults urge him to leave. Hayaki stands up to meet Dororo, but his eyes are still closed. As he's about to leave, he finally opens his eyes to see Jukai and his mom. These are the two people he considers his parents, and he gets a good look at them for the first and last time. Once Hayaki and Dororo are safe, Hayaki's mom goes to comfort Taho. The old man pulls Dororo and Hayaki up from an old well. Hayaki looks at Dororo for the first time and admits she's pretty. Moments later, the whole castle comes crashing down, and when Daigo hears about it, he just leads his men into battle against the Asakura. Failing to get Hayaki's last body part causes the final demon statue to shatter, ending their reign. Once everything calms down, Dororo shares her plan to build a country from scratch, using their own money and hard work. She doesn't want to rely on demons or ask for their help ever again. When asked how she's going to get the money, she assures them she has plenty, which she'll recover in a few days. Dororo is proud to finally have a purpose for the money her dad saved for her. The old priest asks about Hayaki, and Dororo tells him Hayaki left to take care of something personal. Hayaki heads to the shrine and finds his dad. His father blames everything on Hayaki and says he's ready to make more deals with the demons. He doesn't care if he sacrifices someone else as long as his dream comes true. After waiting for hours, Dororo is feeling anxious, but the old priest tells her that Hayaki might not come back for a while. Dororo is heartbroken, but the old priest reminds her that this is something she has to do. Dororo needs to find her own path, and it's not a bad one. Hayaki is like a newborn trying to figure things out. He has a chance to kill his dad, but decides against it. When his dad asks why, Hayaki simply says he's not a demon, and his dad shouldn't be one either. With that, Hayaki leaves the shrine. That's when Daigo realizes he messed up. He understands that Hayaki Maru could have turned out great if he hadn't used him as a pawn with the demons. He also figures out why the demons are so desperate to claim Hayaki Maru. They see that he has the strength to keep pushing through even when things get tough. Daigo regrets what he did while he slowly bleeds out in the shrine. Dororo now accepts that Hayaki needs to find his own way. She's also getting back on track to make things better, just like she promised. She believes she and Hayaki will meet again. As the series wraps up, we see an older Dororo running toward Hayaki Maru, and they both have big smiles on their faces.